Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining on this beautiful sunny day. If you're here in Sydney, we were just complaining about not being outside. Very kind of you to give us your hour over lunch, hopefully to learn some practical tips about net zero. Before we kick off, I just wanted to get a kind of sense from the room about who's here today. It's always helpful for us to know who's joined so that we can make sure the content's really relevant. So first of all, hopefully you'll have Slido coming up on your screen. Just hoping to understand from you all what your role is. Bit of a list here so we can see who's joining us. It's fun watching this live. Mm-hmm. 5 people so far. Thank you. Gosh, I'm curious what other is. We'll have to find out. We'll have to dig into other shortly.
Is anyone brave enough to let us know what other is?
Cool. So good population of people in the client services account management space, which is great to hear. Other, we are curious about marketing. Great. No one yet in the ESG role, which isn't surprising because I think most people that end up wearing the sort of sustainability hat don't typically have a formal role in it, at least in our customer base. Nice.
If we can just get 2 more people, there's 21 on the call. So if we can get response.
I know if you're driving, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Driving, go ahead and have an accident.
Yeah.
She's a founder, so you can put point there.
Yes, true. And the next one, I think this is really interesting where do you see yourself as a company on your journey to net zero? So starting from 0, i.e. not even started, to you're an absolute hero and you really want to be here to show off, please let us know. Cool. Excellent to see. Okay, so most people fairly early on the journey. That's so good to hear. That's hopefully why this webinar has piqued your interest, because it's very much targeted at businesses who are just getting started and keen to educate themselves about what net zero means and how their company might be able to take some proactive steps. So thank you. Taylor, I'm just going to start with some introductions. So maybe back to the first page. I just wanted to introduce myself quickly. My name's Kat. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Trace. And just a little bit of background, my co-founder Joanna and I, we launched Trace at the start of 2020 with a mission to enable every business to reach net zero emissions. So what we've built is a software platform designed for small to medium enterprise that understand the role they play in creating a sustainable future, but need some help to get there. And by the sounds of the votes there, most people are early on their journey, and we're here to educate you. Frankly, it's a long road to net zero. So our goal is to make it educational and fun, but we'll have a bit more on that later. I am thrilled to welcome Sam Buchanan, CEO of the Independent Media Agencies Australia, the IMAA, which is the industry body representing independent agencies. I spoke to Sam yesterday and he said that the body had come to a conclusion about a year ago that they'd sort of reached a size where they felt they had the responsibility to do some good. And that's when they started their sustainability journey, which includes reconciliation, diversity and inclusion, and the environment. Their goal is to promote and educate their members about sustainability, and they've recently launched a $250,000 platform to educate the next generation of media people about this very topic. So super exciting to have you here today, Sam. Thank you. I will let you do a proper introduction later, but I'm first just going to get to a little bit of debunking some terminology so that we're all on the same page when we start talking about sustainability and what we mean. So today is the first of our industry leader series. Thank you very much for joining. It's all about net zero in practice and what that means for companies. And we're starting with agency land. We've brought in the IMAA because we believe they're really leading from the front in terms of best practice. And we're hoping Sam can share some tips for you all. So let's just quickly cover some terminology, because I'm sure you've all heard these terms and frankly, probably a bit confused by them, which we were too when we first started off in this journey. I'm going to just start with carbon neutral, because that's probably the one that you hear a lot and hopefully people are getting some familiarity with. The key here is that what carbon neutral means is that a business has measured its carbon emissions, all of them, both direct emissions and indirect emissions, and they've offset at least 100% of them. So by doing that, they've actually neutralized their carbon dioxide. This is well defined and largely understood, but there's still some companies out there making false claims without understanding the real background and definition. So we really want to make sure that we're very transparent when companies are making claims about being carbon neutral. Just to add a little bit of complexity, there is a phrase called carbon negative and carbon positive, which mean the same thing, which is utterly confusing and bewildering for most people. But essentially, it means that you've actually offset more than your emissions. So you're going above and beyond. But unfortunately, the terminology is not well defined. So what do we really mean by net zero? Well, this actually means that a company or government, a person has a strategy in place to reduce emissions substantially. The goal or the guidance is that it should be about 90%, and only the remaining 10%, which are unavoidable, can be offset through carbon removal. So this is a fairly ambitious goal. And that's why when you hear people talking about net zero, it tends to be targets 10, 20, even 30 years away, because that is an audacious and ambitious goal. You might have also heard the phrase climate positive. This really means positive action beyond just carbon. So carbon is a great way of measuring emissions, but it's not the only problem with the environment. We have waste, we have water. So there's lots of climate metrics that we can be tracking as well. And really the ultimate goal should be to go beyond just net zero. However, there's absolutely no definition underlying this. So if you just look at this graph, you're probably thinking, wow, that is a pretty ambitious pathway. How on earth are we going to get from, emissions as a company today to net zero, which is a 90% reduction? Well, rest assured that you're not alone if that's what you're worried about. Even the biggest companies out there with huge teams working on this are still a bit unsure. So I think the important thing to remember here is that we've got to start somewhere, and that the sooner we begin, the higher our chances are of success. So that's why we're here today, to hopefully inspire businesses to get started today. Now, I just wanted to share a bit of data that we've gathered from working with hundreds of small to medium enterprise across Australia and New Zealand. This is kind of a breakdown of the emissions from all of our customers. And as you can see, about a quarter, roughly 25%, are actually directly influenced by employees. So your staff working from home and how they get to work, those are things that your employees actually have control over. And that's actually a lot of emissions that you can then influence as an organization. Now, interestingly, only about 10% of companies with public net zero disclosures include their suppliers or their employees in their targets, which from our perspective is leaving emissions on the table. It's a missed opportunity. So at Trace, we really believe in engaging your stakeholders, namely your employees and your suppliers, in your targets and in your strategy, because that's how we'll get to 90% reduction. So I'm excited to reveal some extremely cool initiatives that we've seen the IMAA start since they embarked on their sustainability journey. To name just a few, and these are just the public ones. I'm sure there's a lot going on behind the scenes that hopefully Sam can shed some light on. Firstly, the IMAA actually became a carbon neutral organization in October last year, which is a huge achievement. That means they measured their entire footprint of their staff, of their suppliers, of their travel, of their energy, and they've offset that through really high quality climate projects around the world in order to neutralize. They've since then, for Earth Day, planted trees completely voluntarily just to go above and beyond via the Canopy Project. They participated in Clean Up Australia Day recently and got their staff involved. And they've also recently launched a green team, which is a group of people within their community driving towards a more eco-friendly tomorrow. So this is why we've invited Sam here today. And without further ado, I'm really excited to let Sam quickly introduce himself before I dive into some questions. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Kat. Hi guys, my name's Sam Buchanan. I'm the CEO of the IMAA. A little bit about the IMAA is we started out about 4 years ago, just trying to raise the voice for independent agencies, and we kind of went through 3 phases. Firstly, the phase about just putting a spotlight on it, talking about it in the trade press, and giving a voice to Australian-owned businesses. That also led us to conversations with the government and kind of dinners with prime ministers and kind of having that fight with to ensure that indies get a fair share. Secondly, it was about leveling the playing field, just reducing the running costs of businesses, which was a key and really respected around the world from what we did, from trade credit insurance to group deals. But the third part was, we reached this, and without sounding like an absolute flog, with great power comes great responsibility, and we've reached 165 odd agencies around Australia. And with that, it's important for us to do some good. And that's where we did some work around diversity and inclusion. And we're about to launch a female emerging leaders mentoring program. We've done a reconciliation wrap, and we've got a charity out in Middle Australia that we support and work very, very closely. In fact, I was talking to them this morning. And then finally, the environment. And it's such an important thing that affects every single person on the planet that we cannot afford to sit on the sidelines, and we owe it to our members to be responsible and lead the way, not only for indies but for the wider media community. And that's why we're so passionate about doing it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And there's a lot to uncover there, because I know sustainability to you at the IMAA is not just about climate, but let's focus there today. And having heard the introduction about what we really mean about net zero, why is that important to you personally as a leader, Sam?
Yeah. So we've been on a tremendous journey with this, and probably the first part is we did a survey. We do a survey every year, a pulse survey, and it checks the kind of what indies want and where the money's going to, and we ask questions about sustainability and reconciliation and so forth. But one of the biggest things that really stood out to me is that we did a survey, and we do it every year, but the one in December said that is a company's carbon credentials or sustainable credentials important to you as a business? And 50% said it's not currently impacting our business decisions, but this is coming down the track. And 48% said it's somewhat of a thing, but it is coming. So what that tells us is that I think everyone knows that this is coming from a business point of view. It is coming towards us. So when you look at companies like Goldman Sachs and the major investors, and they'll only support businesses that are environmentally aware or sustainable, then this is going to come down to the food chain, to the agencies, and then eventually to the media as well, because they're going to be knocking on our door going, what are you doing and where do you sit? So we all need to have a position, and we all need to kind of start working towards it. So that's probably the first thing. From a business point of view, this is going to be here before we know it, and we've got to get on board with it. The second part is from a staff point of view, dare I say it, I've been in the industry for probably 25 plus years now. Hard to believe, I know, right? I've been in the industry for plus years. And when I first started out, it was, if I wanted to get a job, and I wanted a pay rise or whatever, I would just tell me where to sit, and for extra $10,000, I will do whatever you say. This generation coming through is, thank goodness, it's a lot more aware of purpose, and they'll go, what is your agency's purpose? What is your business's purpose? What are you doing for this? And no one can sit back and go, I've got a recycling bin in the corner of the kitchen, and I'm an environmentalist. It doesn't cut it anymore. So we've got to get serious for this. If you want to attract talent as a business leader, you've got to have purpose. You've got to go, what are you doing? What do you stand for? So from those kind of 2 reasons, A, it's good for staff, good for just being a good business leader and being a good person. 2, it's good business because you need to be ahead of it. And 3, it's the right thing to do. Now, why, as a leader, it's important for me to drive it. Look, I think I've got 2 small children, and I work in media and advertising. and I've got to balance this out a little bit. So yeah, I've got to look them in the face and say, this is what Dad does for a living. And I take great pride, and this is why I get up and, you know, send emails to my team in the middle of the night, because I'm very, very passionate about it and believe that, you know, that we need to lead as an industry body. We need to lead from the front.
That's amazing to hear. That's interesting, that sort of conflict you feel like you have from the work you're doing, but obviously you're very passionate about this on behalf of your children. It resonates because my co-founder and I actually call ourselves climate conscious hypocrites, because we are absolutely climate conscious. Obviously, this is what we do and why we go to work every day. But equally, we're the first to jump on a plane. You know, I can't pretend to be perfect in my diet. I own a car. You know, all these things are difficult choices that, frankly, they make your life a bit easier, but you know that there's a bit of tension there. So I think that's really what inspired us to start Trace, was to help people at least start moving in the right direction, even if it's not perfect.
True.
So just thinking about kind of, you embarked on this journey last year. You said, right, we really want to stand for sustainability as an industry body. Obviously, one of the challenges, as I outlined before, is kind of, what do you do next? Where do you even begin? From your perspective, what were the challenges of getting started, and how did you overcome them?
Look, for us, it was and we were guided. We've got some partners, Net Zero Media, which is one of our members, Benedictus. You know, we were guided by a lot of people around us, and we were advised that it was a little bit like, to a degree, you know, there are some companies out there that aren't that reputable. It was a little bit like the Wild Wild West to a degree. We and not pre-rehearsed at all, but we were guided to you guys, and we recommended as being, you know, highly one of the good guys. So it's really, really important that you know, picking the right partners and just starting somewhere. Like, for us, the challenges were just understanding what we can do. We understood that our members wanted to do something about it, and this was our role. It was about, where do we start? What is our role as an industry body? And how can we help and change things? So, you know, when we did start out, it was about education and putting a spotlight on it. We ran a number of webinars with Project Earth about, you know, getting people to talk about it, and then putting a spotlight on our website with all of our, you know, we've got 5 partners now. Obviously, Trace that works with us on our carbon on our carbon plan. Net Media Zero that helps media agencies identify and work out how much carbon goes into what specific campaign. So if you've got a campaign, it goes into that. Scope 3 that measures I guess digital campaigns.
Right? Yeah.
C20, which does our events, and they make all of our events. I believe that we are the only industry body in Australia of the media size that has embarked on a journey like this, and then seeing this as well, which kind of work on a way of just reducing the cost and digital footprint, or the carbon footprint of digital campaigns.
Gosh, I mean, you know, by outlining all those different partners, you've clearly highlighted the importance of choosing, you know, the right ones, because of reputational risks if you choose the wrong one. But can you, just for the benefit of the audience here, kind of explain why you chose a variety of different partners, and what they all help you, what they're each contributing towards your goals?
So each one of our partners, it's about education. I think, like, our role is education, and also each one of these guys give a bit of an incentive for our members to participate, and also be part of it, and kind of just start their journey. You know, they all play a specific role. There's not too much double up in each, but for us, but, you know, we are exploring what else can we do, and you know, we'll lead from the front and make sure that our backyard is tidy, and see what we can do, and then we'll educate and work on our members and say, right, if you need a hand, then, you know, each one of our partners, you know, we're more than happy to assist and incentivize you to do so.
Love that. It's so good. And look, we work with a lot of agencies who are very conscious that digital advertising and production and all these things do have a big footprint, but they're not always in direct control of those, right? So I think what we always say to that is, start with your own backyard, as you just said, Sam. You know, what you can control is your own office space, and helping educate your employees about the decisions they can make on a day-to-day basis. And then the next step can be to look at, I guess, some of those indirect emissions from your advertising activities.
Yeah, and on that, like a fun fact, well, it's not a fun fact, but digital advertising, I think it makes up 3% of carbon emissions in the world.
Yeah.
And I was baffled by that. Like I said, what that would be compared to what, newspapers or TV or what? But, 3%, when you look at the grand scheme of things, is massive. So there's a lot we can do there on to reduce. Now, I think we're scope 3 and seeing this kind of play in those areas.
That's awesome. So true. So talk to me about some of the triumphs. You've been on this journey for about a year now. What initiatives have you done internally, and what's really resonated with the IMAA?
I think that the education, and we've launched a page on our website, the education and the incentives we've kind of embarked on through group deals to help people understand, and also really kind of lean into it. I think that we wanted to do some practical things, like some things where we can, really kind of all get involved, and we embarked on Clean Up Australia Day, and that was around Australia. We had agencies from Cairns to St Kilda, from Penrith to Perth, all over Australia, doing it with our partners, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, and really, really worthwhile. We're moving into another phase now. So now we're moving into getting a bit of a working group on our initiatives called the Green Team, and we're just doing a bit of call out for that. We've got some of our agency founders. I think it's so there's one such as Alchemy One, which is B certified. Have all kind of jumped onto this, and we're going to be kind of carving out some initiatives over the next 12 months. But really proud, probably tentpole moments is kind of going, starting our journey in carbon neutrality and kind of working with you guys on that. The physical events such as Clean Up Australia Day, and we'll be looking at other ones, maybe tree planting or something throughout the year. And then, every single major tentpole moment in terms of the calendar year around the environment, we'll also be doing educational webinars and talking about that, about what we can do on a practical level, and how can we help our agencies navigate the space.
Love that. That's a lot to achieve in a year. So I'm excited to see what the next 10 could look like. So just to close out these specific questions, then we can go into a bit of a Q&A with the audience. Any specific advice based on what you've learned over the last year for an agency early in their journey and starting to embark on reaching net zero?
Probably two things. So often in the media industry, dare I say, there's a lot of hot air to go around. So I would probably, first thing is start somewhere, whether it be small or what have you, but just make a start. It's like any journey. Like, you can't just put it in the too hard basket. Start somewhere. And the second one is have someone in your team, in your organization, to champion it, and to be to be the one that kind of puts forward the initiatives and really drives it, because we're all on the same page. Like, I think I couldn't imagine anyone on the planet who doesn't think, it's not a good idea to do better things for the planet. So we're all in this together, but have someone to champion it and to really drive it. And I think that will really help that. And then probably final one is education, ask questions. It's such a new space. Like, ask questions, speak to people, speak to the IMAA, speak to you guys, because we're all in this kind of journey, and everyone's trying to do the best and understand what the best process is to move forward.
I love that. And I think you're in a unique position as agencies, that you do have a public voice, right? And you are able to tell a brand story. So if we can get that right and help companies tell that in a really authentic way, hopefully will inspire, thousands of others to do the same thing. So it's really exciting for us to partner with agencies, be they media, marketing, advertising, because of that voice that you have to the public.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, dare I say it as well, sometimes as agencies, it's the builder's house is the worst house on the street. We're not very good at telling our own stories, but I think that's something we are doing collectively a little bit better than we have.
And this is actually slightly off piece, but it's just came to me as I kind of thought about that comment. I'm sure everyone in this call is very familiar with the term greenwashing, which is something that comes up a lot in the press, as it should, because I do think we need to hold companies accountable for making, claims that they can substantiate. What would be some of the things you've learned about how to ensure that, what you say publicly is not deemed as greenwashing?
Look, I mean, everything from the IMAA point of view is, we haven't come from, myself and my team haven't come from we've come from the background of agencies and media. So everything that we say, we've got to back it up with, with doing something that's tangible for, so when it comes to reconciliation, we don't just want to talk about it and make a fluffy statement. We want to actually physically change people's lives, raise money, and actually, embed a charity and do things. With the environment, we want to make sure that we don't just talk about, oh, this is the right way to do things. We actually lead the way first, and we lead the way with that, and by showing this is how we do it. This is how we're partnered with it. The D&I and diversity. Rather than just talk about it, we want to actually make physical changes. So we invested last year $20,000 into the Leaders for Good to train 25 CEOs on inclusive leadership and how to do that in a week-long course. And we're about to invest another probably $20,000 into the emerging female leaders as well. So it's really important from an IMAA point of view. That if we say something in the trade or do something, we actually back it up with some actual action, and we don't want to say anything just for the sake of it. So when it comes to the environment, we're going to lead the way and do it that way. Yeah,
I love that. I think we always say, you can't be accused of being, if you're transparent, as long as you're being very open about what you do know and what you don't know, then that's all we can ask here. And it is a complex journey. And yeah, even the biggest companies out there, as I said at the start, are still trying to navigate how on earth we get to that mega reduction in emissions. But if they're upfront about that, then they can't be accused of misleading anyone. Amazing. Well, I mean, that was a very rapid fire back and forth between you and I, but I would love to open it up to the floor to ask any questions either to myself or Sam, or just to kind of kickstart. So. Oh, love this. How can I encourage my leadership team to take action? I'll leave it over to you, Sam, first, and then I might add some thoughts.
I would say there's two very, very key things that I kind of alluded to at the front, is two key points. It is good business, because if, in the same way, like on a tender list, they asked, several years ago, like I used to see it, like, what is your stance on the modern slave labor? Slave labor. And it's like, I haven't slave labor. When you think about it, and you think like, oh, if I give it off to a team and they're kind of working with a team in another country, you lose control of that. So in the same way that in tenders, these questions have come up, we will get more and more questions about what are you doing for the environment. And if you're not seeing it now, mark my words, you will see it in the next 12 months. So you've got to get on the front foot. You've got to be able to answer that. So it's good business, firstly, and any CEO or accountant or stuff will go, bugger, you're right. We do have to get on the front foot. And secondly, it's the right thing to do as a human being. And thirdly, your staff want it. Your staff want this. So if you want staff engagement, it's the best way to do it.
Oh, I love that so much. I think when we first started out with Trace, a lot of it was driven by kind of this sense that they felt they had to. There was kind of risk mitigation, which I think still applies, but more and more, I think our customers are seeing this as actually just good for business. It hopefully drives growth. It helps retain staff. It helps build their brand. So yeah, look, if there's anybody that would like to help, like to put a story towards their leadership team, we'd be more than happy to help. And it sounds like Sam would be too. Where are we? Does Trace have a calculator for businesses to calculate their carbon footprint? Yes, we do indeed. It's probably not quite as, I wouldn't call it a calculator, in that it's not something that you just kind of pop a bit of data in and then it pops out a number, because we've spent several years now developing a methodology that's highly accurate, but also nice and simple for a business. So we work with you to gather the data we need in order to turn that into a carbon emissions assessment. So would love to chat to you if that's on your agenda for the next, for starting your journey. Amazing. Another one for you, Sam. What were the first steps you had to take to become carbon neutral?
We had to firstly, we had to understand who we needed to partner with. That was the first step. So we did. So we spoke to a lot of people about trust and who do we need, because there's a lot out there. So once we established that, then we need to have a bit of a look at, our organisation, and we're 4 people. We do a bit of travel, but we weren't as complicated as probably some large 180 person agencies. So we've had a look at what we do and our habits and how we work and how we operate, and then calculate that and then offset it from there.
Amazing. That's great to hear. Some clients are starting to make it known that they want agencies to be transparent around sustainability. Yes, so true. Do you think there's an opportunity for agencies to take the initiative and lead clients by example on sustainability?
For me,
I reckon so. It's your industry.
Okay. Well, that's a tough question. I think that ideally, we've all got to look after our own businesses, and I think that we make commercial decisions on profitability and so forth. However, I think that what we can control, is definitely only a positive thing for your agency. So whether it's your own carbon output, I mean, when you give it to a third party, some of our suppliers, you lose control of that carbon journey, obviously. But what you can control with some of the initiatives, even just have a goal to work towards, I think is just the first kind of step. You've got to do it. We do, I think, lead by example. I think that, no one's going to look on, be in a pitch and someone goes, we're on a sustainable journey and this is what about our agency, that's only going to be seen as positive. So the more that you can differentiate yourself, the lines between, and I'm going to go a bit of a rant here, but the lines between, I talk about this a lot, between holding companies and indies, it's really kind of leveled out quite a bit. I mean, there used to be the days of holding companies will be able to buy at a significant rate cheaper. That's kind of gone. It's all bid based now. 70% of the market is bid based. So the level's been playing field. The true definition of what your agency stands for, and that could be sustainability and also data and how you use data, and that's just tools, and that's more and more accessible. So anything that you can do to make your agency more of a environmentally aware or environmental citizen and lead the way will only help you in business, full stop.
I love that. Yeah. And from my perspective, it's very much a two-way street. You sort of got the pressure from larger companies who have mandatory requirements to report on their emissions. And therefore, they're starting to ask their agencies, as this person has pointed out. But certainly it's cyclical. And, I'm actually seeing some companies elect to only work with businesses that have some sort of purpose statement or carbon target, and that's a great way to inspire action. Put your money where your mouth is. And I said it before, but when the likes of Goldman Sachs only investing in businesses, it's going to come down the food chain to agencies. So we really need to kind of focus on that. Government tenders, they're all over. You get awarded points for certain things, and the environment is definitely one. So if it's not happening, currently with your current stable of clients. You were talking about winning your business. I think about keeping business as well. Yeah. You've got to be on the front foot with this stuff. Yeah, that's so interesting.
We've had one question come through the Q&A. Becoming carbon neutral sounds difficult. Was it difficult, Sam?
No. No, in fact, it was pretty very, very easy. Again, the IMAA is a relatively small association, so we don't have 100 people. But for us, it was understanding what our habits were, and it wasn't that hard for us. It took a little bit of time from Beck Colson, who I work with, to bring this to life. But it wasn't that hard. In fact, it was minimal, to be honest.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I think there's probably a bit of a perception out there that measuring emissions becomes this sort of ginormous 6-month project. Certainly speaking from Trace's perspective, we've worked very hard to make that not the case. So our platform is really designed for the lay person to be able to understand their emissions very quickly and take action on it. So it's great to hear, Sam, that it wasn't a big onerous process.
We've had one awesome comment come through from Carolyn. Kat and Sam, you may have seen it pop up, wondering if the trace process supports a B Corp application.
Oh, great question. Thanks, Sam. We've actually, as Trace, just put in our application for B Corp. So I'm very familiar with the business impact assessment. And the simple answer is yes. The environment section of B Corp really focuses on how well do you understand your impact on the environment, and do you have plans in place to address those? So first question is, do you understand your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, and what are they? That's absolutely what we can help with. In terms of offsetting, we also can provide those if companies wish to become carbon neutral. And then setting targets is also something that we are advising clients on. So it's definitely a great way to get some more points on the BIA in the environment section. Cool question here. What are the big areas of emissions impact in the ad supply chain and or for agencies? Sam, do you want to kick us off?
Oh, look, I would say, and I was surprised that I mentioned before, the digital. And the big thing from that, and forgive me, I'm not an expert on it, but I believe it's the data storage.
Yeah,
is massive. Like the energy it uses to cool those huge data storages units is absolutely massive. A lot of the other probably more traditional areas of the supply chain, such as outdoor, they're all started this journey as well. So they're working on products that are carbon neutral. And again, the net zero media team kind of look at a campaign that you might have and can kind of work out how many tons of carbon it would use to do it. And then should you have a client who wishes to run a purely neutral carbon campaign, they can give you a verified stamp on that to go, this campaign is actually carbon neutral, because they offset it and calculate the amount of carbon it would use to run it.
Yeah, it's so true. There's so many different parts there. As you said, the digital is probably the largest, just because of, if you think how many billions of web pages there are out there, each with your media on the side. There's actually a lot of data now to show which websites are more efficient in terms of carbon per impression. So there's a lot of companies out there trying to solve for that.
And even like, I think it's seen this, that kind of programmatic journey. There's so many hands and bits of tech involved within that. If they kind of minimize the supply chain through SSPs and DSPs, that reduces a ton of carbon and also makes your ads load faster as well.
Yeah, great point. And then obviously you mentioned as well, other type, digital advertising tends to be fairly wasteful if you're kind of creating new collateral printing things, which ultimately might end in landfill. There's definitely a carbon cost to that as well. Was it easy to bring your employees on your climate journey, Sam?
Very easy. Obviously. Look, I think that, and I'll probably just talk about my kind of journey with our team. I mean, our guys are Tian and Beck are all very, socially aware and they love that. But I think as well, it's important that, from an agency point of view, bringing your staff on the journey, everyone, it's all good it's all very passive when you become, carbon neutral and those things. Like, there's not much you can do. But also if you marry that up with some physical things that you can do as a team to really kind of galvanize, like what we did with Clean Up Australia Day, it was quite nice to do something physically together as a group, as marrying that up with as well as what we're doing kind of behind the scenes by doing the right thing. So it kind of brings it to life a little bit more rather than the passive kind of, hey guys, guess what? We are, carbon neutral now. So, this is great to marry it up with some physical exercise.
Very cool. This is the goal of this is not for me to be selling Trace, but just so you understand what it looks like, what we think employee engagement looks like. It really starts with educating them and making them feel like they're part of the journey. So we do that by sending out a carbon footprint quiz to all of your employees so they learn about their personal footprint, but also we gather the data that's really essential to calculating your company's footprint. So lots of data, which is cool. And then we play that back via a presentation to your staff at the end. Very cool. Well, I think that brings us nicely to the nearly 45-minute mark. So unless there's any other final questions or remarks that you want to make, Sam?
No, look, just thank you for the opportunity to talk, Kat. Really enjoyed it. I think it's such an important topic that that our agencies and our community really need to start to get ahead around. Not just again for it's the right thing to do as a business, but also it's the right thing to do for your business.
Yeah, love that. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining us over lunch. Please do reach out to the Trace team or the IMAA, who we would both love to advise on kind of next steps for your sustainability journey.